AITA for withdrawing my guarantee after my ex-wife called me her starter husband? I'm Samuel, 45, and Daphne was my wife for 12 years before we signed the divorce papers and pretended we were too civilized to be hurt. Our divorce was the kind people praised because they didn't have to see what happened after the lawyers went home. We didn't scream in public. Neither of us posted vague quotes online. We divided what needed dividing, signed what needed signing, and told mutual friends we wanted to keep things respectful. For a while, I was proud of that. I still picked up Daphne's mail when it came to the wrong address. I answered practical texts. I forwarded insurance documents. When one of our old friends invited both of us somewhere, I made it easy. I arrived late, stayed polite, and left before anyone had to wonder whether the room was tense. On quiet nights, I'd eat reheated pasta over the sink and tell myself dignity meant never correcting the record. Daphne liked to say, "We're mature enough to be friends." She usually said it when other people were listening. At a birthday dinner about 6 months after the divorce, Tessa, a mutual friend, asked if seating us at the same table would be strange. Daphne smiled before I could answer. "Samuel and I are fine," she said. "We're mature enough to be friends." Then she touched my arm as if we were demonstrating something. I gave Tessa a small nod. "It's fine." It was easier than saying that Daphne and I weren't friends. We were two people with years of shared history, a few lingering financial loose ends, and an agreement not to embarrass each other. At least, I thought that was the agreement. Graham entered the picture a little over a year after our separation. He was 39, loud without technically raising his voice, and always seemed to be checking who was noticing him. He had a salesman's smile and a habit of making statements that sounded like jokes until you realized the joke was always about somebody lower in the pecking order. The first time we met, Daphne invited me to a casual dinner with several mutual friends. She said she wanted to avoid awkwardness later. Graham shook my hand, held it half a second too long, then grinned. "So you're Samuel?" "That's me. I've heard a lot." Daphne laughed quickly. "Only good things." Graham looked at her. "Mostly historical things." A few people smiled because they weren't sure what else to do. I let it pass. Later that night, while I was brushing my teeth, Daphne texted me. "Graham gets insecure around you. Please don't take the jokes personally." I stared at the message, foam still in my mouth. I wrote back. "Then maybe he should stop making them." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, reappeared. "Please don't make this a thing. He gets weird when he feels judged." That became the pattern. Graham would call me old news, say Daphne had traded up, or introduce me to someone as part of the origin story. Daphne would look embarrassed, but never enough to stop him. Later, she would explain that he was under pressure, used humor when he was nervous, or that my naturally serious expression made him feel examined. Somehow, his insecurity kept becoming my responsibility. I kept telling myself I could absorb a few stupid jokes. I had survived the end of a marriage. I wasn't going to be baited by a man trying to prove he had won something. That was how Daphne learned my silence was dependable. The financial guarantee started with a call from her on a Tuesday evening. She didn't text first, which already told me she wanted something complicated. "Do you have a minute?" she asked. "I have 5. She gave a small, humorless laugh. "Still doing that?" "Doing what?" "Making everything sound like a business call." "It is a business call, Daphne. We're divorced." There was a pause. Then she told me that a remaining post-divorce obligation was interfering with a financing structure she and Graham were trying to put together. During the divorce, we had agreed to close out a shared liability in stages rather than all at once. Most of it was already resolved, but one temporary arrangement still connected my financial history to hers. Graham was planning a launch for a hospitality consulting business. He had clients lined up, vendors expecting deposits, and an opening event planned at a private restaurant space. To secure a revolving line of credit while Daphne completed the last transfer tied to our old obligation, the lender wanted additional support. Daphne described it as a bridge. "Short term," she said. "Clean. 90 days, maybe less." "I'm not investing in Graham's company." "You wouldn't be. This is really about untangling the last thing between you and me." "That's not what you just described." She sighed. "Samuel, I'm trying to finish what we agreed to finish. The lender just wants everyone comfortable while the transfer clears." I told her I would review the documents, nothing more. The next day, Victor called me. He was the main contact handling the paperwork. He was 52, calm, methodical, and almost impossible to rush. I liked him immediately because he treated every sentence as if it might be read back in court, without actually making everything sound threatening. He explained that the proposed guarantee wouldn't make me a partner in Graham's business. It would support a pending line for future use during a limited transition. I wouldn't be giving Graham cash. I would be allowing my creditworthiness to serve as replacement support until Daphne completed the agreed transfer. I still didn't like it. What stops them from presenting this as his independent financing? I asked. We can write limitations into the consent. What happens if my name gets used outside the agreed purpose? We add a transparency and non-misrepresentation condition. If they breach it, you may withdraw authorization for future use. You can erase an amount already drawn under valid terms, but you can stop future reliance on your guarantee. I thought about Daphne. I thought about how badly I wanted the last financial thread between us cut. Put that in plain language. Victor did. The final document stated that my guarantee could only be used for the disclosed transitional purpose. My name could not be represented as Graham's capital, investment, partnership, or independent endorsement. Material facts about the guarantee could not be concealed from a party whose consent or conduct depended on them. If the conditions were breached, I could revoke future authorization in writing. Before signing, I called Daphne. This stays transparent, I said. My name does not become anyone's sales pitch. It won't. Graham knows what this is? A pause, brief enough that I almost ignored it. He knows there is temporary support while everything transfers. That's not what I asked. He knows enough to move forward. I should have stopped there. Instead, I told myself the documents protected me. I told myself that Daphne was proud, not dishonest. I signed. For the first month, nothing happened. The line remained pending while other conditions were completed. Daphne sent me 2 short messages thanking me for being reasonable. Graham posted photos from vendor meetings and talked at dinners about taking big swings. At one gathering, he leaned back in his chair and said, "Some people are built for safe little lives. Some people actually build things." He looked directly at me when he said it. I took a drink of water. Daphne kicked him lightly under the table. He laughed. "Come on, Samuel. No offense. None taken." That wasn't true, but I had started to think refusing to react was a kind of victory. My friend Miles didn't agree. Miles had known me since before Daphne. He was 46, loyal, blunt, and completely unimpressed by polished excuses. We were eating takeout at his kitchen counter when I told him about the guarantee. He set down his fork. "You guaranteed what?" "Not the whole company. A pending line. Future use only. There are conditions." "Why?" "To close out the last financial issue from the divorce." "That's the reason on paper. Why did you really do it?" I folded the top of the paper bag, even though it didn't need folding. "Because I wanted the divorce finished without another fight." Miles watched me for a second. "You keep trying to win the divorce by being the easiest person to use. That's not fair." "It's exactly fair." I started to argue, but he held up a hand. "I'm not telling you to blow it up. I'm telling you to keep everything. Emails, texts, signed copies, every request, every explanation. I have the documents. Have the messages too. Miles, receipts first, feelings after." I laughed despite myself. "You make it sound like I'm preparing for court." "No, I'm trying to keep you from ending up in one." So I saved the messages. I downloaded the signed guarantee. I kept the bank transfer receipt from the old post-divorce payment. I exported a voicemail Daphne had left asking me to attend a previous dinner because people are asking questions, and it would help if they saw we're okay. At the time, I thought Miles was being dramatic. 2 months later, Daphne invited me to her engagement dinner. The invitation arrived as a polished email with a shared calendar link. Private dining room. Cocktail hour at 6 o'clock. Dinner at 7 o'clock. Family and close friends. I read it twice, wondering whether I had been included by mistake. Then Daphne texted, "I know this may feel unusual, but your being there would show everyone we handled things like adults." I replied, "I can come by, congratulate you, and leave early." Her answer came immediately. "Thank you. Please be warm. Don't bring up business topics. Don't make Graham feel like he's being examined. And please don't bring old energy into this." I looked at the screen. "What old energy?" "You know what I mean." "No, I don't." "Samuel, please. This is important to me." I almost declined. Then I pictured the next round of explanations. Daphne telling people I couldn't handle her moving on. Graham calling me bitter. Mutual friends making careful faces around me. I thought one clean appearance might finally end the pressure. 1 hour, I told myself. Shake hands. Say congratulations. Leave. 2 days before the dinner, an RSVP email landed in my inbox. The subject line was Final Guest Notes, and at first I assumed it had been sent to everyone. The thread below showed otherwise. Daphne had been discussing seating, arrival times, and which guests needed special attention with Tessa and the restaurant coordinator. My address had been added where another Samuel's address should have gone. A minor mistake. I was about to delete it when I saw my name. Samuel will come. He always does when I ask. Put him somewhere visible, but not close enough to make Graham tense. It makes the financing people comfortable to see that everything is cooperative, and Graham doesn't need to know why. I stared at that sentence long enough for my coffee to go cold. Then I read the full thread. Tessa had asked, "Is Samuel actually comfortable attending?" Daphne answered, "He likes people to think he's being gracious." It's fine. A relative asked whether my presence might seem strange. Daphne wrote, "Honestly, he still likes being included. This gives him a harmless way to feel connected." I sat back from the table. For months, Daphne had told me that my attendance reassured friends. Now I understood which people she was actually trying to reassure. Financing people. I opened the folder Miles had told me to keep. The pattern wasn't hidden. I had simply refused to name it. There was the voicemail asking me to attend a dinner because people were asking questions. There was a text before a small business gathering. "Please just show your face for 20 minutes. It will help everyone relax." There was the old transfer receipt, followed by Daphne's message, "Thank you. Don't mention this to Graham. He's sensitive about anything that looks like help." Then I found the message I had somehow filed away without absorbing. "Please don't tell Graham how this is structured. He hates feeling helped." I read it 3 times. She had not just borrowed my credibility. She had hidden it from him, dressed it up as his success, and told everyone else I was the one hanging around. I called Miles. He answered on the second ring. "What happened? How do you know something happened? You never called before lunch." I read him the email. For once, he didn't interrupt. When I finished, he said, "Forward the original thread to yourself. Save it as a file. Screenshot it too." I already did. "Good. I want to call her." "No. Miles. Do not give them a scene they can edit." "She's using me." "Yes." "She's telling people I'm desperate." "Yes." "And Graham doesn't know." "Apparently not." I stood and paced to the window. "So what do I do?" "You call Victor. You ask what belongs to you. Then you decide whether you're still willing to lend it." I called Victor that afternoon. I didn't tell him about the insults or the seating chart. I sent him the RSVP email, Daphne's secrecy text, and the relevant pages of the guarantee. He was quiet while he read. Finally, he said, "The condition is clear. Is this a breach?" "In my view, yes. Your name is being used to provide comfort outside the disclosed purpose, and a material party appears to have been kept uninformed about the structure. What happens if I withdraw? You may revoke authorization for future use. The pending line would be frozen for review until Graham provides replacement support. Would I be canceling money he already has? No. Based on the current status, no funds have been drawn under your guarantee. You would be withdrawing support for future use. Can I do it immediately?" In writing. I looked at the invitation on my desk. Do I need to give a reason? You should identify the breached condition. Keep it factual. Do not threaten anything. Do not demand anything. Just withdraw what belongs to you. That's all I need. After we hung up, I drafted the notice. I didn't send it. That night, I considered withdrawing before the dinner. It would have been cleaner. It also would have let Daphne tell everyone I had sabotaged her engagement out of jealousy, with no witnesses to what prompted it. I hated that this mattered to me. But Miles was right. Daphne knew how to edit a scene. She had been editing our divorce for more than a year. I decided I would attend as planned. I would observe. I would congratulate them. If they treated me with basic respect, I would leave and deal with the guarantee privately the next morning. If they used my presence to humiliate me again, I would stop participating immediately. It wasn't a revenge plan. I didn't prepare a speech. I didn't tell Tessa or any of the other guests what I knew. I put Victor's number in my favorites, saved the revocation draft, and drove to the dinner. The private dining room was at the back of a restaurant with dark wood walls and low amber lights. A printed seating chart stood near the entrance beside a framed photo of Daphne and Graham. My name was at table 4, near the service door. Tessa and most of the mutual friends were at tables 1 and 2, closer to the couple. I was seated with a cousin I had met once, an older neighbor of Daphne's, and 2 people connected to Graham's business. Visible, but not close. Exactly as the email had instructed. A server checked my name against the RSVP list. Before I could step inside, Graham appeared. He wore a dark suit and the expression of a man greeting a donor he didn't particularly like. "Samuel," he said, offering his hand. "Good of you to show. Congratulations." He pulled me into a quick shoulder clap. "Closure looks good on you." I stepped back. "Enjoy your night, Graham." Daphne came over before he could answer. She kissed my cheek lightly and held my elbows for a second too long. "Thank you for coming," she said. I said I would. Her eyes moved over my face as if checking for danger. "You're okay?" "I'm fine." "Good. Let's keep it easy." There it was again. A request disguised as an agreement. I took my seat. For the first half hour, the dinner was normal. People ordered drinks. Someone's fork hit the floor. A server apologized for bringing the wrong appetizer. Tessa stopped beside my chair and squeezed my shoulder. "I'm glad you came," she said. "Are you?" She looked confused. Of course. I almost asked whether she had seen the full RSVP thread, but it wasn't the time. Instead, I said, "Enjoy dinner." Graham spent most of the meal talking about the launch. He described the opening event, the vendors, the projected client pipeline, and the credit line he expected to be finalized within days. He had placed his phone face up beside his plate. Every few minutes, the screen lit with messages. "One good quarter," he said, cutting into his steak. "And people are going to understand what we built." One of the business guests asked whether funding was fully committed. Graham smiled. "The line is done in principle. Just paperwork now." Daphne lifted her wine glass, but didn't drink. I watched her instead of him. She felt me looking and gave the smallest shake of her head. "Do not." A few minutes later, Graham turned the conversation toward risk. Big moves separate people who actually build from people who spend their lives protecting what they already have. The older neighbor nodded politely. Graham continued, "Nothing wrong with being conservative. Some people are built for safe little lives." His eyes moved to me. I put down my fork. "Sounds like you've got a lot riding on it," I said. His smile tightened. "That's what building looks like. Then I hope you understand the structure." Daphne's head snapped toward me. Graham laughed. "I understand my own company." "I'm glad." The table went quiet for half a second. Then someone asked about dessert. I could have left at that point. In hindsight, maybe I should have. But I had promised myself 1 hour, and the toasts were beginning. Daphne's sister spoke first. She cried halfway through and made everyone else tear up. A friend of Graham's told a story about meeting him years earlier. Tessa said something warm about second chances. Then Graham stood. He didn't use a microphone, but he didn't need one. He had the kind of voice that filled a room because it assumed everyone wanted to hear it. He thanked the guests. He praised Daphne's intelligence, her patience, and her ability to recognize potential. People laughed. Then he looked toward my table. "And let's hear it for upgrades," he said. A few guests chuckled before they understood where he was going. Graham raised his glass higher. "Some first drafts teach you what not to keep." The laughter became thinner. My face went hot, but I kept my hands flat on the table. Daphne watched me. Not Graham. Me. She was waiting to see whether I would behave. Graham grinned. "I'm kidding. Mostly. No offense, Samuel. You're part of the origin story." Someone at the next table looked down at her plate. Tessa stopped smiling. Graham could have ended there. He didn't. And hey, some people confuse a pity invite with a seat at the table. But tonight is about the future, not the people who still need a little closure. The room made that awful half-laugh people make when they hope agreeing with the speaker will end the discomfort faster. Daphne didn't tell him to stop. She didn't say my name. She didn't even look embarrassed anymore. She gave me a warning look. Do not make this a thing. Something in me went completely still. I had spent more than a year believing silence made me mature. In that moment, I finally understood it had only made me useful. I placed my napkin beside my plate and stood. Graham lowered his glass slightly. I smiled at Daphne. "Congratulations," I said. "I need to take a call." Then I walked out. No slam chair. No speech. No insult in return. The service door swung open behind me as a server carried in dessert plates. I passed the framed engagement photo, crossed the lobby, and stepped into the parking lot. My hands were steady by the time I reached my car. I called Victor. He answered with, "Are you sure?" "Yes." "Has anything changed since we spoke?" "Yes." They just publicly characterized my presence as unimportant and implied my attendance was based on personal desperation. That is not legally relevant by itself. I know. The documents and the concealed use are. I'm done tolerating both. All right. Send the notice exactly as drafted. Attach the signed guarantee. Copy me. I opened the email. The subject line read, "Withdrawal of personal guarantee for future use." The body was 4 sentences. I am withdrawing my personal guarantee effective immediately due to breach of the transparency and non-misrepresentation conditions. No further use of my name, funds, creditworthiness, prior consent, or attendance as evidence of continuing support is authorized. This withdrawal applies to all future reliance and pending draws. Please confirm receipt and update all relevant parties. I attached the signed document. Then I hit send. The timestamp showed 8:42 p.m. For a few seconds, I sat in the driver's seat and listened to the muffled sound of traffic beyond the lot. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt tired. Then my phone buzzed. Victor replied, "Received. Forwarded for immediate review." I put the phone in my pocket and went back inside to collect my coat. I had just reached the entrance to the private room when Graham's phone started vibrating against the table. The sound was small, but the room had gone quiet after the toast. He glanced at the screen and smiled. "Excuse me," he said. "This might be the call." He answered at the table. "Hey, yeah, I can talk." A server placed a dessert plate in front of Daphne. She whispered something to Graham, probably telling him to step outside. He waved her off. Then his expression changed. "What do you mean withdrawn?" The room seemed to contract. He stood so fast his chair scraped the floor. "No, that doesn't make sense. The support is already approved." He listened. "Review? For how long?" Daphne went pale. Graham turned away from the table, but not before everyone heard him say, "What replacement support? Why are you saying Samuel?" Every face turned toward me. I was standing near the door with my coat over one arm. Daphne pushed back from the table. "Keep your voice down," she hissed at Graham. He covered the phone with his hand. "What did you do?" I met his eyes. "I withdrew my guarantee." His mouth opened, but the lender was still talking. He walked quickly into the hallway. Daphne followed me into the lobby before I could reach the exit. "What did you do?" she repeated. "I just told you." "Fix it." Her voice was low, but the polish had dropped out of it. "No. Samuel, do not do this here." "I didn't do it here. I did it in writing." "You know what I mean." "I do. You're worried people will understand what happened." She looked over her shoulder. Several guests had come to the doorway of the private room, pretending not to watch. "Please," she said, "call Victor. Tell him you reacted emotionally. Tell him it was a misunderstanding. Why would I keep backing a man who just told a room full of people I don't matter? That was a joke. You knew he was going to do it. I did not. You watched me instead of stopping him. Because I knew you'd take it badly." I almost laughed. "You invited me because my presence made financing people comfortable." Her face changed. It was slight, but I saw it. "How do you know that?" "You emailed me." "I did not." "You added the wrong Samuel to the RSVP thread." She closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, she stepped closer. "Listen to me. That line was shorthand. It was not what you think." "Which part?" "The part where I always come when you ask? The part where Graham doesn't need to know why? Or the part where you told everyone I still like being included?" "You're making this about your feelings." "No. I made a financial decision about my name. You're punishing me for moving on. I didn't object to your future. I objected to being used to finance it." Graham came through the lobby doors with his phone clenched in one hand. His face was red. "You just froze my line. I withdrew my support. You had no right." "I had the exact right written into the document you apparently never read." He looked at Daphne. "What document?" She said nothing. Graham turned back to me. "You just nuked my launch because your feelings got hurt at a toast." "No." The toast answered a question. "What question?" "Whether I was willing to keep underwriting my own humiliation. Real men don't pull money because somebody makes a joke. It wasn't your money." His jaw tightened. "I built this. Then replace me." He took a step toward me, not enough to be a threat, but enough to perform one. You think this makes you powerful? No. I think it makes me uninvolved. Daphne reached for his arm. Graham, stop. He shook her off. You've been waiting for a chance to do this. I took out my phone. I found out 2 days ago. Found out what? That you didn't know. His eyes narrowed. Know what? Daphne said. Samuel, don't. I opened the message and held the screen where Graham could read it. Please don't tell Graham how this is structured. He hates feeling helped. He read it once. Then again. The anger in his face shifted direction. What is this? Daphne folded her arms. It's out of context. I swiped to the next image. Her request for the guarantee. Then the guarantee's condition page. Then the RSVP email. Samuel will come. He always does when I ask. It makes the financing people comfortable, and Graham doesn't need to know why. Graham looked at Daphne. You told me the lender liked my numbers. They did. You said the line was based on the contracts. It was. Mostly. People had moved farther into the lobby now. Daphne's sister stood near the restaurant host, staring at the floor. Tessa was a few feet away, her face tight. Daphne noticed the audience and immediately changed her tone. This is not the place. I looked at her. You invited an audience. Don't act shocked that the truth showed up too. Tessa stepped closer. Daphne, she said carefully. Did you tell everyone Samuel was helping you? Daphne looked at her as if the betrayal belonged to Tessa. It wasn't like that. How was it? It was temporary support connected to the divorce. Samuel is making it sound like he funded Graham's company. I didn't say that, I replied. I guaranteed future use of the pending line while you completed the transfer. The line stayed viable because of that support. You hid it from Graham and used my attendance to make the arrangement look stable. Tessa looked at me. I thought you were still hanging around because you wanted to. I know. Her mouth tightened. Because that's what she told us. Daphne's face hardened. I never said desperate. I opened another screenshot. It was from the email thread. He likes people to think he's being gracious. This gives him a harmless way to feel connected. I held the phone toward Tessa. She read it and went silent. Graham looked like he wanted to grab the phone, but he did not. What else did she say? He asked. I'm not giving you their entire relationship history, Daphne snapped. Our relationship history, he said. You told me he was the one asking to come to things. I kept my voice even. She asked me to attend. More than once. I played 3 seconds of the saved voicemail before stopping it. Samuel, people are asking questions. It would really help if they saw we're okay. The lobby went quiet. Daphne's shoulders dropped. For the first time all night, she didn't have a polished response ready. Graham pointed at me. You could have handled this privately. So could you. It was a toast. It was a status display built on information you didn't have. He laughed sharply. You think I needed you? The lender apparently did. He flinched. Daphne stepped between us. Enough. Samuel, tell Victor this can be fixed tomorrow. No. We can amend the paperwork. No. We can add disclosures. No. Come on. You said this was about transparency. Now everything is transparent. Because you got caught. Her voice dropped. You're enjoying this. I looked at the guests, the uneaten desserts, the staff pretending not to hear, and Graham's phone lighting up with another call. No, I said. I'm embarrassed I let it go this far. I put my phone away. Do not use my name again. Do not represent my attendance as support. Do not contact Victor through me. Any remaining communication goes in writing. Daphne stared at me. So you're just leaving? Yes. I walked out. Miles called while I was driving home. I answered through the car speaker. Well, he asked. I withdrew it. And? The lender called before dessert. There was a long pause. Then he said, You sound miserable. I'm not happy. Good. Good. If you were celebrating, I'd worry you did it for revenge. I stopped at a red light. I did wait until after the toast. You waited until they answered your question. That's what I told myself. Did you lie in the notice? No. Did you withdraw anything that belonged to them? No. Did you threaten them? No. Then go home. Eat something that didn't cost $50 and come in a circle. Despite everything, I laughed. At home, I opened the refrigerator and found half a container of pasta. I almost ate it over the sink out of habit. Instead, I put it on a plate and sat at the table. My phone kept buzzing. The first messages were from people who had been at the dinner. Tessa, I'm sorry. I believed the version that was easiest to believe. Daphne's cousin. I didn't know any of that. Graham's toast was out of line. One of the friends who had laughed wrote, I didn't realize. I thought it was just awkward humor. Most of the apologies started with, I didn't realize. Some people didn't apologize. They asked questions disguised as concern. Did you really cancel his whole business? Was it necessary to do it that night? Couldn't you have waited until after the engagement dinner? I answered none of them. Daphne called 7 times. Then Graham called twice. I let every call go to voicemail. Daphne's first voicemail was angry. You need to stop acting like this is some clean moral stand. You embarrassed me in front of my family. The second was softer. Samuel, please call me. There are deadlines. We can fix the personal issues later. The third dropped the performance entirely. If the line isn't restored by noon tomorrow, they'll lose the restaurant deposit. Do you understand that? I did understand. The opening event was booked for the following month. The restaurant required confirmation of funding by noon to hold the private space and vendor schedule. Graham had mentioned the deposit several times over dinner, always as proof that the launch was real. I forwarded the voicemails to Victor and Miles. Victor responded first. Do not engage by phone. Revocation is effective. Formal acknowledgement pending. At 10:18 the next morning, I received written confirmation that the pending line had been frozen for review. Graham would need replacement support or a revised credit package. My guarantee would not be used for any future draw or approval. At 12:26, Daphne texted. They kept the deposit. I read the message and put my phone down. I didn't feel sorry enough to change my mind. The deposit wasn't enormous enough to destroy Graham, but it was large enough to hurt. More importantly, losing the date disrupted the vendor schedule and forced him to postpone the launch event. For the next several days, Daphne tried every version of the same argument. You made your point. You're letting one bad joke affect dozens of people. This is not who you are. We were supposed to handle things with dignity. That last one nearly got a response. Instead, I typed a draft, deleted it, and called Miles. She keeps using the word dignity. Of course she does. I want to tell her exactly what I think. Write it. Don't send it. That's not satisfying. Neither is sending something she can screenshot without context. I leaned back on my couch. You always this annoying? Only when you're about to make my advice look necessary. So I wrote everything I wanted to say in a note and saved it. Then I sent Daphne one sentence. Future communication must be written and limited to unresolved post-divorce matters. She replied within a minute. This is an unresolved post-divorce matter. I wrote back. No, the guarantee has been resolved. The social fallout moved more slowly than the financial one. Tessa called me 3 days later. I should have asked you, she said. Asked me what? Why you kept showing up. I would have said I was trying to be decent. That's what I assumed too. But Daphne made it sound like you were hoping she'd change her mind. I closed my eyes. She said that. Not directly. That's how she does it. She'd say you were having a hard time, or that including you was the kind thing, or that she didn't want you to feel erased. I thought about all the events I had attended because Daphne said people wanted proof we were fine. She was the one asking me. I know that now. Why didn't you say anything when Graham made those comments before? I thought you didn't care. I cared. Then why did you keep smiling? Because I thought silence made me better than them. I did not say it out loud. Instead, I said, I should have corrected it sooner. Tessa sighed. For what it's worth, not everyone thinks you were right to pull the guarantee that night. I know. Some people think you planned the whole thing. I had the notice drafted. I also planned to leave without sending it if they treated me respectfully. That's not going to help your case with everyone. I'm not making a case. She was quiet. Then she said, Daphne is telling people you used private messages to humiliate her. She used private messages to obtain financial support and public appearances under false pretenses. I'm not arguing. I only showed the messages to people she and Graham dragged into it. I know. Are you still friends with her? Another pause. I don't know. That answer told me more than either of us wanted to say. Victor sent a certified confirmation later that week. The lender had removed my guarantee from the pending structure. There were no outstanding draws tied to me. My involvement was over. I read the letter twice. Then I put it in a plain folder with the divorce papers. Not a victory file. Not evidence for another fight. Just proof that the door was finally closed. Graham's launch didn't disappear, but it stalled. Without my guarantee, The lender asked for more documentation, a smaller initial line, and additional collateral. Graham had to renegotiate with vendors. The restaurant refused to return the deposit because he had missed the funding confirmation deadline. The opening event was pushed back indefinitely. He posted nothing about it. Daphne stopped posting too. A few mutual friends avoided both of them for a while. Others remained close, but stopped repeating Daphne's version of the divorce. One friend never apologized and later told Miles that I had proved Graham's point by being overly sensitive. Miles asked whether I wanted to respond. No. Look at you. Don't ruin it. About 2 weeks after the dinner, Daphne asked to meet. We can clean this up, she wrote. Not the financing. Us. The way this looks. I almost declined. Then I decided I wanted one final conversation with no family, no fiancé, and no audience. I chose a quiet public place in the middle of the afternoon. I arrived 5 minutes early and sat at a small table near the front. Daphne arrived exactly on time, carrying herself with the careful calm she used when she wanted everyone nearby to believe nothing was wrong. She sat across from me. You look tired, she said. So do you. A server came by. Daphne ordered tea. I ordered nothing. For a minute, neither of us spoke. Then she said, Graham thinks I humiliated him. You did. Her expression tightened. I protected him. You protected his pride. He would never have agreed to a structure involving you. Then he should not have benefited from one. You don't understand how much pressure he was under. I understand more than he did. She looked toward the window. That toast was awful. Yes. I told him that. After the lender called? Her eyes returned to mine. Don't do that. Do what? Turn every sentence into a trap. I'm not. I'm refusing to help you soften the timeline. She folded her hands around the teacup when it arrived. I did not invite you to humiliate you. You invited me because my presence helped the financing look stable. That was one reason. What was the other? She hesitated. I thought it would show people we had moved on. You had moved on. You just had not let go of access. That's unfair. Is it? She took a breath. You liked being the reasonable one. I did not answer immediately because there was truth in it. Yes, I said. I did. She looked surprised. I liked believing I was handling everything better than people who fought after divorce. I liked not being the bitter ex. That made it easy for you to keep asking. I never forced you. No. You framed every request as proof of maturity and every boundary as emotional instability. That's therapy language now. It was yours first. For the first time, she almost smiled. It disappeared quickly. So that's it, she asked. You're just done? I took an envelope from my coat pocket and placed it on the table. Inside was a one-page written boundary notice. No legal threats. No accusations. Just terms. I would not reinstate the guarantee. Neither Daphne nor Graham had permission to use my name, assets, creditworthiness, attendance, prior consent, or reputation in future paperwork, pitches, introductions, or social representations. I would not attend events to demonstrate that the divorce was friendly. All remaining post-divorce communication had to be written and limited to practical matters. Daphne read the page. This is cold. It's clear. We were married for 12 years. I know. You can't reduce that to written communication. I'm not reducing the marriage. I'm limiting what happens after it. She put the paper down. Do you hate me? No. That answer seemed to bother her more than yes would have. I'm angry, I continued. Mostly at myself. I should have set boundaries before you learned my silence was available. I never thought of it that way. You wrote that I always come when you ask. Her face changed again. That was cruel. It was accurate. No, I said. It was a strategy. She looked at the notice. What am I supposed to tell people? The truth. And if I don't, then tell them whatever you want. You just won't use me as evidence. The server came by to ask whether we needed anything else. Daphne smiled automatically. No, thank you. When the server left, she looked at me. You really won't help with the line? No. Even if Graham apologizes? No. Even if I apologize? No. That sounds like punishment. It's a boundary. An apology does not create a new financial obligation. She rubbed her thumb along the edge of the paper. I thought we were friends. We were not. Her eyes lifted. We were trying to be civilized. I was trying. You were managing appearances. That's not completely fair. Maybe not. But it's close enough that I'm done arguing about the percentage. She sat back. For several seconds, I saw the woman I had been married to instead of the polished person who managed every room. She looked hurt, tired, and older than she had at the engagement dinner. Part of me wanted to make it easier for her. That instinct was exactly why I had come with the notice already written. I stood. Daphne looked up. That's it. No, I said. I'm finally acting like it is. I left the notice on the table and walked out. After that, the messages slowed. Daphne sent one written apology a month later. It wasn't perfect. She still described the situation as something that had gotten out of control, as if no one had controlled it until I objected. But she admitted she had hidden the structure from Graham and allowed friends to believe I was attending events because I couldn't let go. I did not forgive her in writing. I replied, received. Graham never apologized. Several months later, I heard through Miles that he had secured a smaller line with different terms. The launch eventually happened without the private restaurant event, without the grand opening he had spent months describing, and without my name anywhere near it. That was all I had wanted by then. Not ruin. Separation. I stopped attending gatherings where my role was to prove Daphne was gracious. I stopped answering calls that should have been emails. When Ms. Delivered mail arrived, I marked it correctly and sent it back instead of driving it over myself. The first time I did that, I stood at the mailbox with the envelope in my hand longer than necessary. It was such a small thing. That was what made it matter. For years, I had confused civility with continued access. I thought refusing to fight meant I had to remain available. I thought dignity required me to absorb disrespect quietly so nobody could call me bitter. But a peaceful divorce does not require one person to keep lending out his reputation, money, and silence. I did not close the door because Daphne moved on. I closed it because she kept one hand on my credibility while telling everyone I was outside begging to come in. Graham called me irrelevant in front of everyone. So I made my role in his life exactly that. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.